Okay, so I'm going to get started. Again, I want to thank you guys all for coming. Most of you, some of you know me, some of you don't. My name is Dan Bafia, and we're here tonight for a number of reasons. And I know some of you came just out of respect for, you knew who I was, and you knew you got an invite, and I appreciate that, thank you. And some of you came with other people, and thank you for attending. Hopefully by the end of the night, you'll find it was worth it. So thank you very much. We're just going to do a little technical change here. We're here tonight for a couple reasons. As a company, did somebody lock the doors back there? So you didn't, for those of you who didn't know why you were coming, you may have heard of pyramid schemes. We're not doing that tonight. So, but again, I want to welcome you. The reason you are coming tonight, apart from the free drinks and the free food, this is all my jokes all in one bag here, so take advantage, enjoy them. I came here tonight for the gift, and you know, sometimes when you have a lot of information to talk about and you're excited about it, the question is how do you deliver that information? And it's kind of like when you see a movie and nobody's seen it, and it was the most amazing movie you ever saw, and you just want to tell somebody, and everybody looks at you like you have three heads. Like, yeah, that was a good movie, that's really nice. And you're like, no, you don't understand. And tonight, what I'd like to do by the end of the night, hopefully by the time you leave, you'll feel like you got a gift. I've been really excited about what we're doing, both as a family, as a company, and then socially, with the people both locally here, as well as internationally. And that's kind of what I'm going to talk to you a little bit about tonight. Let me ask you, how many of you have dreams that aren't fulfilled yet? That's a lot of people. How many of you believe you'll reach those dreams? That's good, that's most of you. That's good, because you know, I think sometimes people dream and they think they're just dreams. And a big part of what I want to talk about tonight is that it's not allowing those dreams to sit on a shelf somewhere and not be realized. And we're going to talk tonight about dreams, we're going to talk about vision, we're going to talk about identity and hope. Most of you know Kathy and I, this is my wife Kathy, for those who don't know. That's Kathy. She's going to talk a little bit too. She and I, David, spent 3 weeks over in Africa. And most of that ways I was blogging, so if any of you are Facebook friends with me, you saw some of the things we were doing, and I put pictures up. And as we were going, people were saying, I want to know more, I want to know what you're doing over there. And I said, you know, there's so much to talk about, so not only are we talking about what we did over there, but how that relates to why we do what we do here. And then also how that affects you, or how you can take advantage of that. So by the end of the night, what I'm hoping happens is you get a little dose of something that stirs something inside her that says, hey, listen, there's more to me than what I show right now. You know, I can be something greater. And so that's some of the things. We went over there, when we were in Africa, we were with a group called Favor of God, that's who hosted us. And then again, I spoke about what some of the things we're going to talk about here means, both locally and internationally. So back to the beginning, the story. For those of you who know me, I talk way too much most of the time, and I've got way too many stories. And only one of my kids is here, so I'm not going to get 3 eye-raised weird looks that go like that. You tell way too many stories. But I think you know, you go through life, and that's what you have. You got your story. And when you're young, you have a small story. You know, it's little. It seems huge, but it's little. And as you get older, your story grows, and that's the only thing you have to take with you is your story. And so the question comes is, what do you do with that? And how do you make that a story that's worthwhile? And back at the beginning, I wrote back at the beginning, and by the way, I've done this once, and I don't particularly care for talking in front of large crowds. I'd have a much better time if we were like sitting out, hanging out in some chair somewhere relaxing, because everybody's looking at me, and it's not like what I like to do. It's out of my comfort zone, believe it or not. But we're going to give this a shot, and we'll kind of keep it casual, and we'll go from there. So excuse me if I go like this somewhere. It's really in my nature. So back to the story. Back in the beginning. Back in the beginning, and I'm taking the beginning not back too far, so I'm not going to start at childhood, so we'll be here till sometime tomorrow at least. But I go back to 2003. Prior to 2003, my dream personally was to own a business and grow that business. And you watch people that do this and think, I can do that, I want to do that. And then I was in businesses and I watched the businesses and I thought, people that get in business and they make a lot of money and they build their business and they sell their business and they retire. And I built a business that we sold in 2003. And I didn't think I was going to retire, but that was going to be 2005. I was bored out of my mind. I had nothing to do. I just I had no desire to do anything, because I had kind of reached this pinnacle, this dreams. And I was sitting at dinner one night and I was saying something, and Kathy looked at me and she said, yeah, that's back when you used to be, and she stopped. And I looked at her and I said, no, you didn't say that. And she said, I didn't mean that. And I said, no, you meant when I used to be fun, exciting. And she said, I didn't mean that. And I said, but it's the truth. And I went to bed that night, and actually I woke up in the middle of the night and I thought, you know what? This is not who I am. I have so much more to offer. And I can't sit on the sidelines and do nothing. My life has to be worth something. And so I went a couple months and we looked around. Eventually in 2006, I got back into the business with the company that bought me out. In 2009, we opened 4 businesses in 1 year. So I kind of went home one day and I said, hey, we're a little busy. And I said, I hope I'm not boring anymore. And she said, I think you can slow down a little bit, But the fact of the matter is, at that time, I was active again. And I think as we go through life, we have a lot of activity. But the question is it directed? Is it directed activity? Are we reaching what I had up there as our dreams? And it's cool that you guys all had dreams, because I think sometimes you get in a crowd and people don't know what their dreams are. And I don't know if you all know what your dreams are. I write mine down because I remember. But what happened was we reopened the imaging center. And I thought to myself, you know what? Through life, I've been directed to some really cool things. And I've had some really good transitions from who I used to be to who I was, and there was some back and forth in there, and some parts I didn't like, some parts I did like, and I felt like God was giving me this opportunity to kind of reignite myself. And so I went away with my daughter to Seattle, and while we were there, she was looking for an internship, and I thought, I'm just going to go. Sometimes I always tell the kids, sometimes you got to go to the mountain, you got to get away, you got to get out somewhere where there's no noise, no distractions, there's just clarity, so you can hear and think. And so I felt like that was the mountain for me. And while I was there, I thought, you know what I want to do? I don't want this. I already did the business thing where you build it, you make some money, and you sell it, and you figure that all out. And it really wasn't all it was cracked up to be. And at the end of the day, I thought it has to be more. There's got to be more to this. And so I went there with the goal of figuring out what I was all about. What were we going to be about? Not only as a business, what was I about? And I thought, I want to come back with a mission statement that says, this is what I'm about, and this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it, and a vision for growth in our company. And I was sitting up, to be honest with you, I was up most of the time in the middle of the night, just online digging and praying and looking and trying to figure out what the heck is it we're supposed to do. And what I came up with was this, which was our mission statement. And what it says is, we exist to enhance the lives of everyone we come in contact with by providing them with the service and support they cannot provide themselves in a manner pleasing to God. And I thought it's pretty simple. It says we enhance lives, we provide service, and we do it in the nicest way possible. And that's what we came back with. With this, I wrote a vision for the company that said, you know, how we're going to achieve this, and some goals, some short-term and long-range goals, and I put them in a file on my computer, and I put it in storage. But we put this up in our handbook, and I started repeating it. I kind of became the sole member of my own personal cult, and I kept repeating this mantra over and over again. I thought if I keep saying it, I'll believe it. And over time, what happened is it started to catch on, and I wanted, you know, you want more for yourself in life, and I think, you know, everybody here came here for a reason tonight, and you know, you could be at home right now, but you're not, and you decided to come in here. Hang on, we'll tell Leanne to come in. Welcome, Leanne. Don't worry, you're only a little bit late.
I have a legitimate excuse.
There's me.
Yeah, right.
No problem.
Thank you.
Dan,
You're ready.
guys, no, like,
So,
just grab this. That's great.
so anyhow, she was working, so I knew she didn't work. But so anyhow, you know, so the question is, how do you implement that? So I got this utopian idea that we're going to try to create a company that's perfect. And those of you who work for one of the companies that we have, you know that hasn't happened yet. And we're working on that. But the whole goal is how do we become? If I want to become this, I have to hang out with people who do this. If I hang out with people who do this, they have to be convinced that it's worth doing. And so we've been working on that. So what happens is, you know, over the course of about 2 years, we had this in place, and we needed to do some development. And on top of this, I always had this goal of trying to do a give back piece. So I've always liked to, you know, give something back to the community, give something back to in general, to society. We've been gifted with things we should be giving back. And I wanted to be more structured about that. So we've been talking about that for a while. And we had a lot of growth going on in the company. As part of the growth process, I thought I need to get somebody to help out. Well, one day I get this guy walks in. I was meeting an English to the Queen's English interpreter there. I figured out what he was looking for. And he said, listen, I'm just here looking for work, and I through a friend met him, and I thought, I don't really need this guy, but I do need somebody to help me with development, and he doesn't fit the bill. He knows nothing about our business. But he had been involved in missions, and David lived in Tanzania for a couple of years. He's lived really all over the world, Australia, he's lived in Europe, he's lived in Asia, he's lived in Hawaii. Is that vacation? That was my wish. And but anyhow, but he had a lot of experience that I didn't have, and I thought he'd be a good person to have on as a give back person. And so I went home that night, and I actually called him and I said, listen, I need help, and if you're willing to learn and kind of intern in the jobs, we'll work something out. And I got home and I thought, I have partners. I have my daughters are my partners. I have a partner who's my partner, and I have a brother who's my partner. How do I introduce somebody into the group who's going to kind of fill in for me when I'm not in the office, and have the authority to do what I want him to do? And I thought, he needs a title. So there was so many things that went through my mind as for what we could do, and I thought, it was probably 1 o'clock in the morning, because that's when I'm up most of the time. And I thought, that's it. We need somebody to keep us on mission, to make sure we hit our goals, make sure we hit our mission statement, and make sure that we don't fail from that, make sure that we keep moving forward. So I said, he's our CMO. I got a CEO, got a CFO, we're gonna have a CMO, a Chief Missions Officer. So in our company, bringing him on was a commitment to hitting that mission, to really doing something worthwhile, to concentrating on, to have something there who said, listen, we probably could be doing this a little better. We probably should take advantage of this or look at what's going on here. And to have him on the field where he can meet people. And it's really been helpful because he does keep us focused. And his only focus is to do that. So bringing him on, we really didn't know where we were going to go. And over a course of about a year, he and I talked about it. And I said, listen, I want to take this to another level. I want to make sure we're giving back. I want to make sure that we're doing more for the community. We're so gifted. We're growing our company. We're putting people in place. And I want a complete concentration on growing our mission statement. It's not about growing our profits. Our profits will come if we grow our mission statement. And so, thank you. Sorry. So anyhow, so over the course of the last 6 months, as we were trying to even take this to another level, and this has all been a process, and I share this sometimes. There's a bunch of my friends who are business people in here, and there's people who work at the company, and there's people who are my other business associates. There's some family in here. You know, this. When you listen to this and you say, you know, what's in this for me? What I'm talking about really is going above and beyond the level where you currently function and doing really something more. And I was thinking about this week, and I thought, you know what? This is really about desegregating your life. That's what I brought you here today to talk about. I brought you here to talk about desegregating your life, so that your work life isn't in its work life box, and you get up and go to work, and you're in your work box, and you leave work, and you get home, and you're in your wife or husband box, and then your kids get home, and you're in your play with the kids box. And then you go out on a Saturday night to dinner with your friends, and you're in your social box. And you get up on Sunday and you go to church, and you're in your church box. And we have all these boxes we're in, and we segregating. And for me, I don't want any boxes. I want one big box that says, this is Dan, it's who I am, it's what we do, and I have a mission statement. And so the question is what to do with that. And I was having a problem with this with our company, because our company was called Hawk Island Leasing for a long time. And the only reason it was called that is because I lived on Hawk Island. And so I needed a name. It wasn't very original. It's what it came. And so as a company, Bill, Ken, Ashley, David, and a number of others, we got together and said, you know what, we need identity. And I had a scripture, Revelation 3:20 says, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I'll come in and dine with them and them with me. And it's an interesting verse, one line, because it says, God's knocking, he's not barging in. We take the time to listen, hear the voice, open it up, he'll come in and dine with you, and you can have conversation. It's kind of cool, but what I really liked about it is we do business. You know, our gifting is, I'm not a pastor. Our gifting is in business. But if we don't do business well, if we do business well, we can affect a ton of people. And what I liked about Revelation 3:20 was, it's a business verse. It says, opportunity stands at the door and knocks, always. And if you take the time to listen for it and open the door to it, bring it in and dine with it at the conference table, things get done. So I like the way that it kind of fit both sides, both the business side and for me, my spiritual side, which I have a pretty strong faith. And so by doing that, it gave us identity, and it said this is who we are. So now we have a company that says, this is what we do. We do business, we listen, we invite in, we open the door, we discuss, and we produce. And we have a mission statement how we do that, which is we enhance lives, provide services and support that people can't provide themselves, do that in a manner pleasing to God. Pretty simple. And I think when you do this, and you have a dream, and you have a vision for that, and you start speaking it, it's cool because you speak life into your vision. And you keep talking about it, and the more you talk about it, the more it becomes. I'm not sure what the next slide is. Okay. So, you sure? 100%. Pick it up, let me see.
You didn't believe me. She just believed me.
So here's what happens over time. So about 3 years ago, and this is where kind of my personal craziness comes in, because I have this strong faith, and I take time to pray. Some people do things in different ways. I'm not suggesting, and when you do that, and you hear that voice in your head that drives you, or in your heart that drives you, for me, God does that and opens things up. About 3 years ago, not 3 years ago, 2 years ago, Vin Canatello, who's a pastor at our church, came to me, and he said, Dan, this is for you. He gave me a scripture. It was Isaiah 55:5, which spoke that nations would come to me. Wish I had it here. But anyhow, it spoke that nations would come. It says, you will know nations, and they will come to you. And I, your God, will do this. And he said, I gave this to you. This is for you, Dan. And I was like, hey, thanks, man. That's cool. He left, and I thought, what in the heck is that all about? Like, I have no clue why you just gave me this information. I literally had no idea. It just made no sense because I didn't know any nations. And Kath and I were building a house, and there was a whole lot going on. We were trying to downsize, and the next thing you know, my mom got sick, and next thing you know, we're putting a mother-in-law suite on, and the house is growing, and it's getting bigger, and Kathy's saying, why are we building this big house? And then we raised the house up in the air a little more, we had the space underneath, and the next thing you know, she's stressing about this house. We're building a house, and it's supposed to be a downsize, and it's the same darn size as the last one was. She wakes up one morning, and she says to me, I had the weirdest dream. She says, I had a dream last night that we're supposed to build a house, and it's supposed to be a respite place for missionaries. And she looks at me and she goes, do we know any missionaries? and I said, I don't think so. And this is no lie. This story is total truth. And I said, I think we do. And so I leave. It was a Tuesday morning. I go to a men's group on Tuesday morning. I get into the men's group and we're having a conversation. It's like 6:20. And we're having this conversation. And one of the guys, we're talking about how intense sometimes the world is. And sometimes you need a break. And one of the guys says, it's funny, I read an article this week, he said that the biggest things missionaries say they need is respite. And I'm like, now I'm on my phone texting, I'm like, you will not believe this. I don't know whether your dream said this, but this guy just repeated it, so I don't know if you and he were talking last night, but we don't know any missionaries, but I know they need respite. And over time, anyhow, what happens is that I go in about 2 more weeks later, and I went to our men's group, and right before this, I was overwhelmed. I felt like God was just speaking to me. I had so much information, and there was nights that I literally couldn't write fast enough. I was like, I'm getting this download of stuff, and so I was writing, and my wife, the supportive wife she is, said, you know what, you're driving me crazy. Get away from me. I don't want to hear what you're saying. I was like, you don't know, you don't understand. I'm getting all this stuff. And she's like, I heard you, I know, I heard you. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. She's like, I'm going to bed. And so she goes to bed, and I get up in the morning again. It's a Tuesday morning. I get up and I walked over, and I don't know why I was whispering, but I was whispering. It was weird. There was nobody else in the room.
You were afraid of me.
I was afraid of her. I probably was afraid of her. So, but I whispered and I said, honey, I'm leaving. I said, I'll see you later. She said, okay, I'll see you. I said, listen, I'm sorry. I'm driving you crazy. And she said, you are. And I said, but you don't understand. You don't know where my head's at. I said, I'm at the point where I keep getting all this stuff and I feel like we're supposed to go do something. And I don't know what it is. And I said, but I'm at the point where if I get down to Sarasota today, and I said, and I was making this up. I said, a couple African guys come up to me in the street and say, you're supposed to be in Africa. I said, I'm coming home with 2 tickets. And she's like, yeah, whatever, I'll see you later. And I said, so I go to men's group, right? Now the men's group's been there for 10 years. It meets at State Route 70 at the Bob Evans at 6:15 in the morning on Tuesdays. And I go in there, and as I walk in Bob Evans, I look back at our little table, and I see these 3 black heads. And I'm like, what the heck? And I go around the corner like this, and this guy says to me, in some random Kenyan accent, "Hello, my name is Benson." And I'm like, he's like, "I'm from Kenya." And I'm like, no. God, to be kidding me. Because this was not like a plan. Like I was actually being kind of smart. And now I'm back on the phone again. I'm like, you will not believe who's in this room. There's 3 African dudes at this table. And she's like, are you kidding me? I'm like, and I think she's thinking, don't buy tickets. So anyhow, so the follow-up to that is this guy, Pastor Benson's there, and he's just a guy from Kenya. He lives in a place called Nakuru, and he was an orphan, and he was adopted at like age 10, 11, and he kind of made and he was adopted by a guy who was a pastor, and he made a promise that if he got married, he would pay back a favor. So he ended up adopting a child, and then another child, and another child. And when I met him, he was with 2 of the boys, his adopted boys there, 2 of the orphans he takes care of. He has 215 kids in his house now, and he's grown now. And as we had the conversation around the table, somebody looked at him and said, you know, how do we go help you? You know, because he really wasn't, he wasn't asking for money, he was just telling me. He said, you do groups, or they come over there. And he did something that stuck with me, and it'll probably stick with me forever. He just kind of took the time like this, and he looked around the table, and he went like this. One man can make a difference. And it hit me, and I thought, okay, I believe you, but I'm not sure what that means. And he said, listen, he said, you think you gotta do great things, you don't. All you really have to do is take a step out, because if you wait to do great things, you will not affect anybody. He said, one man can make a difference. So he leaves, and just bear with me, because I'm getting to my point here. I'm a little long-winded. But he leaves, and about a month later, this woman shows up at our men's group. And in 10 years, there's no women in our men's group. So now we have the African connection, we have a woman there. Actually, we had 2 women there, didn't we, Rosemary? And so, anyhow, I'm like, why is this woman at our men's group? We can't talk about men things today. And so, anyhow, this woman starts speaking. Her name is Carol Ward. And she starts talking about, again, she's a missionary from Africa. Now I know 2 missionaries for respite. And she starts talking about the fact that she has this mission, and she starts talking, it's just kind of pouring her heart out. And everything that she was speaking over a course, and these 2 guys are in my men's group with me, and I'll tell you, everything she was speaking over a course of about a 6 weeks period, we had talked about or written it. I had it written down in my notes. And it stuck with me. I went and met with her afterwards, and she started talking about a number of things, and she said something about business's mission. And for a year and a half, David and I talked about doing give back, because people think you gotta give back and you gotta just hand money to people who go do things. The fact of the matter is, we get the chance to give back by using our time, our talent, and our treasure. And if you're giving back just in your treasure, you're really missing the point. People don't need just your money. They need you. They need the services you provide. Enhancing lives, providing the services and support that people cannot provide themselves in a manner pleasing to God. And as I started watching it, everything's like coming to, like in full circle, and it's all coming to be. David and I are talking about doing business as mission. She's talking about it. And so we inquired, we talked, and I thought, this is kind of cool, because we had talked about the fact that people like her, people like this guy Benson, they have to leave what they do best. How many of you in this room do what you do best for work? Exactly. If today you had to step outside and you had to do something that was so random that it really wasn't your best, how well do you think you'd do that? And that's kind of what I got in my head. I said, man, it's a shame. These people are doing amazing things. This guy's got 250 kids, and he's got to leave those kids to come here to figure out how he's going to fundraise. I said, we do marketing, we do accounting, we do all that support. And we talked and we said, well, that's something that we could do. We could support these people here. We could be their U.S. arm instead of having them have to run around. We could actually provide that service. We wouldn't necessarily do the work, but we could support them and be their connection. And so all these things started to come around. And after she came, Carol lives in a place called Gulu, Uganda. And Gulu is the northern part of Uganda. But she lives there, and over the next, this is another story, this is not exaggerating, over the next 4 months, how many of you have talked about Uganda this week? Exactly. Oh, you did. He's being smart. Talk about me. but realistically, most people aren't talking about Uganda in Sarasota or Bradenton. In a course of about 4 months, Uganda probably came up, and I'm not exaggerating, 40 times. I met a guy who was in Starbucks. I'm sitting in Starbucks with Meredith. We're talking about something for marketing, and I hear this guy 2 tables over say, I hear Uganda, and I go like this. And then I turn back, and I hear him say, business is mission, and I go. and then he kept talking, and then everything was making sense. Finally, I said, hang on, Meredith, why don't we get a card? I walk outside, I give this guy a card. I said, listen, I don't mean to interrupt your conversation, but you're talking about Uganda, you're talking about business as mission. It's been like not only on our radar, but it's like injected into our veins. Maybe we're supposed to be connected. So he calls me. We make arrangements to meet on a Monday, the next Monday, at Perkins out on Fruitville. We got another meeting because we were working on this Uganda stuff, and we said, what does this mean? And we had a planning meeting at like 8:30. So this is good. I'll meet him at 7. We have a planning meeting at 8:30. I go meet with him. He's going to a place called Kampala. He's moving there. He's going there to do business as mission, which Carol's talking about now. This guy's talking about. I'm talking about. And I'm like, this is just weird stuff, right? It's just God's way of putting things in order. And so anyhow, I leave the meeting with him for breakfast. I'm going to another meeting. As we pull out on the Fruitville Road, this car comes down the road. I'm waiting for the traffic light to change. The traffic light changes. The guy pulls in. I pull behind it. Guess what the sticker says in the back of his window? Uganda. It's a sticker. It's an outline image of Africa. I have a picture. I'm telling you the truth. I'm driving down the street I'm tailgating this guy with my phone because I'm like, nobody's going to believe this. I'm taking a picture. And I'm like, behind him, this guy, there's a woman in there, and she's probably thinking I'm like stalking her. But I'm like taking a picture because nobody's going to believe I'm behind a Uganda sticker coming from the Uganda meeting, going to the Uganda meeting. And I'm like, this is insane. So needless to say, over time, between everything that happened and everything we were doing, I said, you know what, I think there's something to this. And I said, I gotta go over and see what's what. So that's the long-winded story of how God's worked to bring me into the shirt today. And so we ended up in Africa, and it was really a cool thing. David's giving me the time clock down like this. So we're going to try to honor your time too, so just bear with us, we'll get through this, but hopefully at the end of the day it'll make a lot of sense.
I was tapping my watch for 15 minutes, just so you all know. Let me just, Dan, will you be able to put this slide in? That'd be great. Yeah, Africa's been a little bit of my background. I lived in Tanzania, which is just south of the equator on the eastern side of Africa for a couple of years. And so it was cool to get to go back with Dan and Kathy because West Africa, it's there, this big bit in the middle. Africa's about 50, well it's not about, it's 54 countries. Their estimation of languages is somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000. Not really sure because there's a lot of places where people haven't been. Just this image is just to show you the energy use. Just to give you an idea, they call Africa the dark continent for many reasons, but this is kind of a literal version of that. You see South Africa fairly developed, but Gulu's about here, where we went in Africa, and there's really nothing there, as you can tell. So just to give you context, this is the context. This is to give you the size of Africa. The US fits just here very nicely, obviously excluding Alaska. Here, then you've got China, India, Eastern and Western Europe. It's a huge place. I know oftentimes people talk about Africa very generally, and that's quite a difficult thing to compare because it's a huge place and it's many, many countries, many languages, many cultures. That gives you an idea of the size of it. We often got asked before we went if Ebola was going to be a problem. Ebola was here, kind of where California is. So they've already got the drought, they don't need Ebola as well. And Uganda's all the way over here. So just to give an example of the distance between the two. This is obviously a really terrible way to do comparisons because it's a country versus a continent, but just to give you kind of a big picture view of it. US has 350 million people and Africa about 1.1 billion. The US wastes 4 times as much food as Africa imports in a year. Just to give you an overview of the food usage. And the US accounts for 1/4 of the world's energy consumption. So if you have that map that I showed before in your head, you can kind of see the difference there. The United Nations says it would take 30 billion a year to end world hunger, which is about 5% of the US defense budget that we're spending there. And the life expectancy in North America is about 79 years, and it's 59 in Africa. But it's not all doom and gloom. There's a lot of good stuff's been happening in Africa, and especially the last 20 years, the changes have been unreal. The middle class, it's the fastest growing middle class as a continent in Africa. Obviously that varies from country to country, and I'm just giving the generalization right now. Cell phone, in 2000, 1% of Africans had cell phones. Today it's about 54%. When I lived in Tanzania, not really anyone had cell phones. And I went back 7 years later with my wife and kids. And the Maasai guys, they're all in their red garb and they just look after the cattle. But they'll get their cell phones out of their top to check the cattle prices in Kenya. So it's cool. It's been cool to see that change there. But there's a long road to go yet. Here's a little map of Uganda, the capital here, Kampala on Lake Victoria. And Gulu's all the way up here in the north, with South Sudan there. During the war with the LRA, kind of this was considered the divide here where the Nile goes west. So the south of Uganda is a lot more developed than the north of Uganda. It's home to about 38 million people, 49% of the population are 15 or under. Really, really young population, and the need for education and development and vocational training is so obvious there. It's a little bit bigger than Minnesota, just to give you context of size, but it takes a lot longer to drive through than Minnesota would. It's home to Lake Victoria, and the Nile River runs through it. It starts in the south in Lake Victoria and runs through it. And the Nile River, for millennia, has been a source of life, kind of the source of life in Africa. It's famous for the gorillas in the Western Mountains. If you want to go see gorillas, either there or Rwanda is the place to go, just to give you a very quick snapshot. Here's some of the economics about it. About 2.5% of the Ugandan population is involved in coffee. Tea is still the top drink, which I'm obviously really happy about, being British, but coffee is their main thing. The average wage in 2005 was $680, and it's pretty much doubled up to 2010. That was the last data we got. So you can see a year, not a day or a week or a month. But still 37.8% live on less than $1.25 a day. Milk's $1.62 a gallon, so a little more than a day's wage. Gas is $4 a gallon, so 4 days. And a school costs on average $650 a year. So when you look at that, if you have 2 kids, you really got to think about it, you know? A Coke or a Pepsi is 50 cents. And the Ugandan GDP is 24 billion, which is about a quarter of what is spent in cigarettes in the US in a year. So northern Uganda and the LRA, the Lord's Resistance Army has been operating for over 25 years in northern Uganda, South Sudan, or was formerly Sudan, and the Congo. It's run by Joseph Kony. They use child soldiers to fight because they're really easy to replace. That's their view on it. You can just go abduct more kids if you lose some. And there's been an estimate, I mean the estimates vary depending on what you look at, but about 66,000 from Uganda alone. During the war, people lived in overcrowded, unhygienic conditions. because there's considered safety in numbers. So they, being a very rural culture, they group them all together so that they can try and protect them. And then you're living in areas where you don't have any sanitation, you don't have food, you don't have water. So it's kind of choosing which is the one you want to risk it out on your own, where you've got a bit more space and you grow your food, or you want to be in these camps. And it's a quite horrific choice. Northern Uganda has only had peace for about 8 years, and maybe a bit less. And the difference between Northern Uganda, you fly into Kampala in the south, and there's hotels and casinos and restaurants and highways. And then you drive to the north, and you can see the effect that the war has had. It's devastating. And the average wage in Northern Uganda is 50% of the national average. We had a chance to meet a child soldier, and Kathy's going to share with us.
Okay, before I start to tell you what my dear friend Susan, who is a remarkable young woman, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself and me being the black sheep of all of this. Dan was on board. David was elated to get back to Africa, and I just wanted to stay home, to be honest with all of you. I was just content. I'm okay. We've got a lot of things going on. I'm fine. And why are you taking me to Africa? So Dan kept going on and on about it, as he told you he did with all these stories. And I mean, it got bad. And you can ask my dear friend, the Millers, Kristen and Chris, because it got to the point, and this is a true story, I'm being very honest. It got to the point that we often get together on a Friday evening after the stress of the week. She said, Kathy, what are you doing good after that? It was all downhill. That was the end of the nice evening. So I guess God felt he had something to show me. And I got so angry one day that I said to Dan, you know, I'm only going to Africa out of obedience to my husband. A lot of you know me, and I haven't done a lot of obedience the whole way through, but all of a sudden I decided I would be obedient to my husband, and I would go to Africa. So here we go. Now it's about 2 days before we're ready to go, and I'm miserable. I am miserable. There's a million things to do, make sure all the paperwork's even, and he made me go get 4 shots in this arm, and 4 shots in this arm, and all these immunizations that I don't want to do either. And I'm a nervous wreck. I said, Dan, this is not the time to go. We're building this home. We have, everything's going on right now. We're going to come back and it's all, we'll have to tear it all back out. It's not going to be what we want. And this is just not a good time. Kathy, we're going. So it was 2 days before we were ready to leave, and I'm not happy. So I go out to the house to just see some final things on it before I wasn't going to be out there again until after I came back from Africa. And I was a nervous wreck. I was beside myself. I wasn't happy, I was tense, I was stressed. And I was just like running at 1,000,000 miles an hour. So I go out and I'm standing there, and one of my new next door neighbors, they're elderly, and the man had a stroke. And I knew he hadn't been well. And I looked over and I seen an EMT vehicle. And I got so upset, I ran over to the house. I run over to the house, and I'm like, Anita, is Clarence okay? She said, oh yeah, he's fine. I'm like, but Anita, the EMT guys are there. And she says, oh, don't get excited about that. That happens a lot. They have to take him down to Sarasota. He'll be just fine. I'm like, okay. So I'm ready to just turn around and leave. And she looks at me and she goes, are you okay? And now, her husband's being taken on a stretcher with the EMT guys, and she's asking me if I'm okay. That's how bad I was, guys. So I said, no, I'm not really okay. And she used to be a missionary, so I'm hoping she understands. So I said to her, I said, my husband wants to leave for Africa in 2 days, and I'm really upset. I am scared to death, and we're going to be killed in Africa, and I don't know what to expect. And she's like, and I'm going, and I'll be honest, I'm totally honest with you, I don't even know what else I said. I think I rambled for 10 minutes. And finally she listened to me and she stayed calm and she said, Can I pray for you? Well, I guess so. If that makes you happy, fine, go ahead and do that. But I don't know how good it's going to do today because I'm Iraq and I'm going to Africa. So she prays over me. I'm fine. I leave the house. I get in my car. I have a million things to do, as you do before you leave the country. And I go on my errands. And 2 hours later, and it was almost 2 hours to the exact hour, I became calm. I became excited to go to Africa. I became overwhelmed with Africa, and I knew I had to go. Dan came home, and I was like, Dan, I'm excited to go. And I think he was going to fall over at that point in time. And he looked at me, and I said, Anita prayed over me. I said, and we're supposed to go. And I didn't know what that meant, but I was totally calm, and I was excited. Well, we get to Africa, and I am totally overwhelmed with some of it. To be honest, these people are absolutely amazing, generous and kind. They have nothing. They give us outfits. They give us gifts. They pour their love on us like I've never seen anything. And as I was really impressed with Dan and David, they did a lot of things over there that I couldn't begin to do. And they spoke at church, they spoke at groups, they spoke at schools. And the response was unbelievable. And I knew the Holy Spirit was running the show. Well, the one morning we got up and Carol said, I want you to meet this young woman. I said, okay. So we go to breakfast. This is the young woman we met, and she's sitting at the end of the table. This young woman, as David had started to tell you about Joseph Coney, had her since she was 14. These children would be abducted in the middle of the night. They would kill their parents as they killed her parents, and they took the children to use as soldiers. And so she's walking, and they have to walk for days to get to wherever Coney wants them, the soldiers want them to get to. And she's walking. And the children, they're tired. They're weak. They can't walk for days. They haven't been fed. They haven't drank anything. They're exhausted. Well, when children would fall down or get tired, they would just shoot them and kill them on the way, so they didn't have to worry about it anymore and kick them to the side. Well, as this beautiful young woman is walking, her name is Susan, her younger brother, that's all that's left because they've watched their parents be killed, are walking. Her younger brother starts to fall. And you know, I've told this story a couple times, and I don't know why I cry every time I tell the story. But she was worried about her brother. And she was so concerned about him that she wanted him to keep on walking because she knew that they would shoot him. So she gets him to keep on walking. But he, I guess, had caused a little stir that upset them and made them irritated and mad. So they decided they would show him a lesson. They took off a man's head and made that little boy, six years old, carry that head for 2 days till they got to the destination. I can't even imagine what that must have felt like, and I know none of us can. And I'm sorry, I can't, every time I hear the story, even if I'm telling it myself, it's just heartbreaking. Well, in the meantime, Susan has been raped over and over again by soldiers. She's had to go out. She's had to kill people to survive. That's what they used the children for. I'll go forwards to the night, the day I'm meeting her. And we're talking, and she's telling us a story, and she's about ready to give up. And she had no father, you know, I have nothing, and no father was ever there for me. I lost my father. And she kept saying about her father, and I know a lot of you know my story, and I really didn't have a father figure either. So for some reason I bonded with her, and I said, Susan, I said, you can start over at any time. So we bonded, and it just was a miraculous event that the two of us bonded, and As a matter of fact, 3 days later, I had been thinking about her, and 3 days later when I seen her, she said, I've been thinking about you too. And I tell you this story because these people are real. They're real people. They're not just something we see on pictures, or we see the children that we go are hungry. I was so overwhelmed by the presence of these people and how sweet they were and how kind they were. Dan and David also went to a university, and they spoke, and they did an amazing job at the university. And they were talking to a group of students, and afterwards we got up and I was all mingling around and talking to some of them. And one of the students came up to me and he said, thank you for being here. And I'm like, well, yeah, that, we really, hope that you guys do your best. He goes, no, you don't understand. He said, just yesterday, I've been going to school because the unemployment rate is like 70%, even if you're educated, and not that many people are, but even if you are, it's still a 7% chance you won't get a job. He said, I decided I quit. I don't know why I'm struggling. I'm doing all this work for school. I have no money. I have no help. I have nothing. I'm quitting. He said, that was yesterday. He said, you guys came here today, and he said, the inspiration you have given me has changed my mind. He said, I'm going to go back to class, and I'm going to finish, and I'm going to get this degree. And I looked at that young man, and I said, and you're also going to change Africa, because you are. One person can change places. And I said the other night to the crowd, I said, it's kind of funny because I didn't want to go, and I didn't think I would make any difference. Because I said, I'm not a nurse, I'm not a doctor, I can't teach them English. I mean, I don't even have a degree. What good am I over in Africa? And I realized some of the many people that I bonded with in Africa without all those degrees. Because I just met them from my heart, and they're just people. And they're only 18 hours away when it comes down to reality. So who is our neighbor? Who do we help? There's a song called No Turning Back, and I'm going to leave you with this, that when I hear that song as I came back from Africa, I was in the car and I put my window down and listened to the wind and the warmth of the sun. And when that song, No Turning Back, comes, so I may not be perfect and I may not be the best person for the job, but there's no turning back. I can never be the same person I was before I left for Africa.
So real quick, I'm going to buzz through a couple of things. Thanks for listening to that. It's funny, I prefaced the start of this because it's important to understand, and really, at the end of the day, I'm going to show you a couple more things. We'll kind of guide quickly through here. It's not really a sad story. It's really a story about what can you do to change lives. And it's not necessarily that you need to go to Africa. There's people every day that are hurting. And I think sometimes we get so caught up in all the crap we do every day that we forget this. One man, one woman can change lives. And it's an amazing thing when you think about it. I'm going to buzz through a couple things, show you a little bit about Africa, just real quick, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we're doing. This is a little bit about favor. It's in Gulu. They strive for transformation, spiritual, physical, social, emotional, economic, academic, moral. They reach northern Uganda, South Sudan, Congo. They work with these people like this girl, Susan. I mean, they put these people out, and they literally provide the support they need to get back to a life. And it's not one, by the way. We met with multiple people who have been abducted as children. Multiples. It's crazy. This woman makes $85 a month. And it's insane. They have no lights, they have no water, they have nothing. And again, it's not just about supporting places like that. It's when you see that, it brings to light the inequities and the things that you could do even here. Some of the girls at the salon do haircuts and makeovers for people at Harvest House and Esther's House, which is a drug recovery place. They work with Selah and do makeovers, which is girls that are being trafficked right here in Sarasota. You know, there's all kind of opportunities. So anyhow, I'm going to go through a little bit about Favor. Favor of God is the group we work with over there. One woman, by the way, this woman's my age. Actually, she's 3 months older, and I let her know that. But she's, you know, this woman went over there about 12 years ago, I think, and just turned things upside down. When these kids were being abducted, she was literally transferring these kids from camp to camp to camp at complete risk. I'm not worrying about it. She was gathering 100 of these kids at night, just protecting them. It's insanity, you know, how much one person can do. So here's what she's done. Beginning in 06, they have 33 orphans they take care of now. By the way, part of this is they don't have funding always. It's so little the amount that you can do to take care of these kids. But there's 33 right now. As soon as they get out of the house, they have a place called the House of Hope. And in the House of Hope has room for more kids as these kids get older. Some of these kids go to secondary schools, and what they do, they board there. It's like $160 a month or something to completely take care of the kid. Meals, medical, school, the whole 9 yards. It's not expensive, but that's what they need. It's $150 a month, so it's right there. They have a school there, a primary school. They teach kids. There are some schools there. Most of the kids, you know, have an opportunity to go to primary school, but the schools aren't great. They have no books. Like in the school we went to, they have books for the teachers. They just got cement floors in some of the rooms. They don't have, you know, it's not like you go to Walmart and pick up a bunch of things to help you with class. They make things. They do what they do. The teachers here make about $116. We figured about $116 a month teaching. It's $39,000 a year for the school. These are the kids, by the way. It was awesome. These kids were so excited to see us. But you see their beautiful paved playgrounds and things like that they're at. It's just like our schools here. So this is a classroom. This is some of the work that they were doing, that they were showing us. They're planning to construct a $1.5 million boarding school with 14 classrooms to take on some older kids and help up there and just really take these kids out. The cool thing about this group is they care. They'll host 1,000 students from Uganda, most of them in the war-affected areas. Carol and the group put a radio station in. You know, it's funny, I had this conversation with people and they said, well, it's a Christian group. It's different there. These people have no jobs, they have no money, they have no water, they have no electricity. They need hope. And by having a religious affiliation or some connection with God, they find hope because it's all they have. Here we have things. We can make a decision whether we decide we want God in our life or not. There they don't. And so what happens is these people go out in a Christian organization, they plant churches and they give hope. And then what they do is once they're in the group, then they find out what their needs are. And they provide them with those needs. And they educate them, they provide them with medical, they get them antibiotics if they need them, they take care of the things they need. So people get malaria, like you go over there and like, oh, he's so-and-so's off because they have malaria and this and that's malaria. He's just back from malaria. I mean, it's like, it's crazy. You just can't imagine it from here. So anyhow, they put a radio station in. There's the newest broadcasters on the radio station. That is a weird face. I think David was under attack or something. It's all aliens. But they put a radio station. My point is, they have a Christian radio station there that does education. They do health education. They talk to the people. They do events. They do things to let them know what's going on. That's the first one of its type up in northern Uganda. They're now pushing their signal up into South Sudan. So going through real quick, we're going to through some just quick pictures. This is just quick pictures. Some of the group from there when we were there. Actually, this picture was in South Sudan. We couldn't get into South Sudan. We went in without visas. We were told we could get them at the border. We couldn't get them there. And Carol has some friends, and they said, well, you know, we're supposed to have lunch right inside the border, and the guy said, that's fine, you can go inside the border and have lunch, but you can't stay, you have to go back. So we convinced the border guards to let us go through. We get through, and this is Carol on the left, by the way, that does all this stuff. And she says, well, we can stay here, and the lady that runs the other mission place there says, oh, that's no problem, we know people in the government, we can get you visas. So they take our passports, take 2.5 hours into Juba, the capital, and they're working on our visas. We stayed there for 2 days. The long and short, so we have no visas, we're in this country illegal, we have no passports, we're just looking at this compound and thinking, this is like a death wish. We're gonna get attacked. So long and short of it is, Carol says, you have to see the Nile River, which is in the background. She says, you have to see the Nile River sunset, we're gonna go. She jumps in the car, we get this guy here on the right, this is the guy next to David, who's like a security guard at the compound. She says, take him with you, it'll be fine. She blows through there's a checkpoint, and there's like 30 tractor trailer trucks waiting to be checked in there. And they're all just sitting there. I mean, they sit for days waiting to get checked in. She says, oh, I said, don't we have to stop? She says, no, it's just for the trucks. So she buzzes through the checkpoint, up over the mountain to see this. We pull into this spot right next door, and as we pull in and stop the car, we look to our left, there's a truck coming up, and these two guys jump out of the back of the truck with machine guns, and they're walking toward us. And I'm thinking, this was not a good idea. This is really, we're like, this is it, we are dead. Because there's nobody coming to our rescue. Trust me, if you were there, you'd be like, oh, there's nobody coming for us. we're not calling for help here. And they thought they didn't know what was going on, and they were worried that we were safe or something. There was some problem because they had a bunch of white people in the car buzzing through the checkpoint. So they made sure we were okay and let this go. But I was like, we can go back. This is one of the main streets in town. You kind of get a feel for what it is. That's the market. More streets, you see how beautiful the sides of the streets are, and you go to the right, it's all over. By the way, this is not unique. We drove 5 hours from the capital on these type roads. It's insanity. This is people trying to make a buck because this is how they make money. They pick their bananas, the buses stop, they try to sell bananas for whatever they can get for a bunch of bananas, $1, and they get their dollar's worth of wages for the day to buy something that they need. This was all over the place over there. The roads are so bad, there's trucks, buses, cars turned over everywhere. That's the Nile River. This is my family. That's one of my grandchildren. This is right on the road, by the way, going out there. It was kind of cool. The kids, you can see them walking. You see their beautiful shoes? All along the roads, that's what you see. You see people walking with cans on their head for water, going to school, cars buzzing by on these crazy roads, and the kids are just walking. Because again, they don't have cars, they can't afford gas, they don't have water, this is what they do. This is where we stayed. This is looking out. You can see this is town. There's some buildings there, but if you notice the roads, there aren't any. Just dirt. This is one of the main streets in Gulu, where Carol lives. It's about 150,000 people in town, so kind of like downtown Sarasota. That's Walmart. This is David doing his thing under the mango tree at the university when we were speaking. It was just a gathering. We were invited to a church gathering, and these people get dressed up in their best. They have one set of vests and they bring it. These were some of the school teachers from the school. They were looking at where the new school's going to be. We were having an event there that day. This is a bunch of the school teachers. This guy's Martin. He was a soldier. He was a general in Coney's army. He was inducted when he was 8. And he was telling his story, and he told a story about, he started telling us about how many people he was forced to kill. And he just started crying, and he said, I didn't mean to kill him. I didn't want to kill him. You know, it's just like, it's okay. But the cool thing is about this whole group over there, which I was overwhelmed by, is they take these people in and they make a difference. You know, they just make a difference. This is their primary school. Going back to the beginning. This is the headmaster of the school. All right, we're doing this again. Keep going. You know those people. It was cool. They had put on a little assembly for us. They were dancing, playing the African congos. They were into it. Just some of the kids. This was cafeteria at the school. You can see the pot of beans. That's how they make it every day. Right? So they have maize and the beans every day for the 300. This is the House of Hope where they take care of the orphans. This is a well where they get their water. It's where the new school and potentially expansion of the orphanage would be. And that is a vehicle that they were trying to get. Actually, you see, I don't know if you, for those of you who are in the back, you can't see how much these people are smiling. These people smile all day. It's crazy. It's just crazy how happy they are. This is a road going into the village. Carol was driving, she was like, it's right here. There's no road signs, by the way, in the entire country of Uganda. There's not a road sign. You're like, oh, go up here to the corner, you see a building that's blue, make a left. And she's like, I think this is it. She turns down this goat path, and I'm like, are we going down there for real? So, and this is some of the kids, some of the huts, the village. One of the older ladies in her hut, that's where they cook inside the hut. Kathy with some of the boys. It's bananas. They grow bananas. They grow cassava. They grow vegetables. That's how they feed themselves. Again, these kids just run all over the place. They got limited clothes, no shoes. This is one of their kitchens. This is what you see along the road. It's just you think you see some of this, and it's like just out of the village. This is like apartments. It's everywhere. That's where they live. Mud huts. That's a latrine, a bathroom.
We get a lot.
This is a cool picture. You see what's behind them?
Yeah.
Solar panel. This guy was so excited. His name was Eric, and her name was Gladys. The baby was Chanel. And that was their hut. He was so proud that he made this hut. That was their family hut. He's 25. She's about 23. Baby was 6 months old, 6 or 7 months. But he was so proud to show me a solar panel because he saved up and made enough money to buy a solar panel. And inside his room was one light hanging. And he was like, look, I put it in myself. And so he had this. So this is what's cool. He had a solar panel, the light, the battery goes with it, and a cell phone charger. So they have connectivity. When they buy their cell phone minutes, because they get money, they buy minutes and they connect. And they're pretty tight with their minutes. That's them inside their hut. Just another village. This is where they conduct class. Everything's done kind of outside under a mango tree somewhere. I was actually standing on a termite pile there. They have eco toilets because they don't have a central system. And the next picture, Kathy loved those. Awesome toilets.
He takes me to the best places.
This is water collection. This is more self-sustaining. This, bricks and mortar. These water collection systems, eco toilets, so they can have like a little. Actually, this is a step up in life, and it doesn't cost that much. It's a brick machine. It costs about $1,500 to get one, and it takes a while, but they can make the bricks and they can make these areas to hold their water. And you see the bricks there. They can make huts and cisterns for water and that kind of thing. They do some fish farming. Coffee beans. That's where they get a snack. Actually, they can eat these things. Ants and termites. They eat it because there's food sustenance there. And I took some pictures. For those of you who don't know, we own the AMCO transmission on Clark Road. We own a couple of diagnostic imaging centers and a couple of hair salons. So I wanted to kind of give you kind of a corresponding look at what they do over there. So that's the AMCO Gulu. It's very nice. That's where they do the work, right there outside in that field.
Looks the same.
This is the salon, fresh salon Gulu. looks just like our salon. You can only probably use it certain times of the day because there's definitely not clippers there because there's no electricity half the time. This is the hospital. This was sad, actually. Went in there and I talked to the guy who was the director of radiology, who's also the chief of staff there. They don't have, there's 6 hours from the close, there's 150,000 in town, there's probably another 50,000 on the outskirts. There are 6 hours from the closest CT scanner or MRI machine. And the x-ray units they use, they did hand dip the x-rays because they can't get the parts quick enough to service the processor, so they just hand dip it because he said that way they know that they're gonna have images. The equipment I used, I'll be honest with you, I've been doing diagnostic imaging since 1976. I don't know that I've ever used anything that old, and I've thrown away better ultrasound machines than they had there. It was crazy, it was dust over everything. I said, how do you use this stuff? He said, it's pretty good except when the dust gets in the buttons and they stick. He said, that's kind of aggravating, and I was like, but this is outside. This is women waiting to go in to be seen. So they get there, they can't get in, so they just lay outside. Some of these people are in labor, some of them are just sick. There's no ability to go in. They just lay outside. They're lined up. It's really sad. It was really sad. Scott, the guy at Med said, he said, you don't even know. He said, I would almost kill for a PAX machine. And we would like to shoot our PAX machine, so that's good. It doesn't run. And I was like, if it was over there, they'd never get it fixed. So this is the road going to South Sudan. It's one of the nicer highways in town. You can kind of see the dust storm that follows you. This is one across the border. This is the border checkpoint. This is construction over in the area. You see the nice scaffolding. I'm sure it meets code. And that's everywhere over there. That is scaffolding. They buy that stuff. Okay. Real quick, I know we're running really good time. I'm going to hustle this up. Robert's going to. Yeah. That's really a favor. That's Africa. A couple things that I wanted to just cover because it is late. But I talked about a lot of the things we do as a company, and really part of the reason I brought you here is because as a company, we've made a commitment to doing things better. We don't always do that perfect, and we understand that. But some of what we've done is decided that, number one, we're going to commit to supporting people like this. To the point where we've committed somebody full-time to do that, to make sure that we meet not only this needs, but the local needs. With activities here in town, activities internationally, and then activities within our staff to make sure that we're treating our staff correctly and appropriately. We're working on that, trying to do the best we can with that. And we're dedicated to doing that. What we wanted to do more than anything else is we do this, as we get friends and family, people say, what are you guys doing? And I wanted to just share this because those of you who are in business, I think if you have a vision and a mission that speaks more than just what you do as a technical piece every day, you'll reach that goal and you'll do more. And we're going to start doing training over time. We're going to put a syllabus in place and do weekend management training seminars for people who want to do more, help find a vision, help find a mission. For people who are just, even those of you who are in this room, if you have a vision or dreams and you're just not sure where to go with them, we're going to offer those opportunities. David's job has been kind of, over the last 2 years, has been kind of a split job where he's doing some of his job as a chief missions officer and some of it he's been kind of filling in as a manager. That responsibility is going to come completely off him, and we're putting that in place in our company. And we're going to offer a discovery opportunity to help people find out how they can meet their dreams and help them to find and put a vision together. Some of the things I talk about, like how God talks to me and does things and affects my life, it's huge. And sometimes people don't understand that and don't know what to do with that. We're going to put something in place called 320 Enterprises Discover, which is going to be a group that's going to meet and have an opportunity to just sit. We've hired somebody who's going to come in and meet with people have the opportunity to just figure out what God has in store for them in their life and how they can connect and find themselves and find out what that means. We're going to look at outside opportunities to give locally, that people have great ideas and they want to bring those. We started something called 320 Enterprise Projects while we were over there, because the whole goal of this, by the way, is our goal was, if we can give out of what we know what to do from our talent and our time, we can have a better effect on the people that we impact. And so what we did was, while we were over there, we put something in place called 320 Enterprise Projects. And we told people, listen, if you have projects that can become profitable, they can become sustainable, but you just need input. You need management expertise, you need marketing expertise, you need accounting expertise, things that we do every day, we can provide that to you. And then if you need some seed capital and it really makes sense, where we can see that it's profitable and we can monitor that, we can have somebody in those locations over there to monitor it, then we'll look at funding that, so being a funding source. Some of these things are $3,000, $8,000, $10,000, but there are a variety of projects. And as we left, within 3 weeks after getting back, they've got 8 proposals. And some of them were really detailed and really good. And so we're working through that now. We're going to put a committee together to look at funding those projects and how can we do that and how can we provide sustainable growth to these people. And I'm hoping that somebody brings us one that is so awesome that we invest in and we can all make money and we make $10 million that we can share with somebody else. We're in business, and if we use the resources we have and the knowledge we have, and we just take what we know. Nobody's asking to do anything more than what you know how to do. And if you can connect that, and that's really what we've decided. Our ministry, and I call it that because it's really what it is, our ministry, it takes away from the segregation of our life and our business and all that stuff. But for me, a big piece of this is ministry, because when you talk to people and you affect them and you change their lives, that's ministry. And that's what we're going to do through our skill set, through what we do. We're going to connect people with the resources they need. And as I see, you look around the room here at all the resources that are available. If we have a list of those things that we can connect, and all of you already do certain things, and you connect with people, and that's really cool. But it's good to, it's good to know that you can do more, And sometimes it's just a simple couple questions. Sometimes, sometimes it's a phone call. I call people all the time. It runs a neurologist. There's times when I have a question, I just call him up, and in 5 minutes he gives me an answer that I have to dig around for hours, because that's his specialty. We have a specialty that we provide. And so this is really what we're all about. And I kind of wanted to just get that word out to you and let you know that if you have dreams, if you feel like you just want to do more, if you want to live to a better level, we're gonna have a way of connecting. David's going to be available. 2 guys here, Jared and Robert, are over here sitting right here. They actually work for Favor. Jared's in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Robert's in Cleveland. They do the fundraising, do their media. They have a website. There's a whole really nice system to support them over there. But we've actually brought them on as employees of the company under contract with Favor, so that we can provide that support for them, and that she doesn't have to worry about that over there. And we can actually provide supervision and work with them as a team to grow that business, to actually get to the point where they're sustainable, that they don't have any other needs, so we can concentrate somewhere else. So that's a whole lot of information over a short period of time, but I wanted to make sure that, everybody, people that work with us and friends, you see what we're doing, and sometimes it's hard, because you really want to take time to share a great story. And this is really for us. Honestly, you can hear Kathy, you hear it in Kathy's heart, and I'll be honest with you, I'm overwhelmed sometimes. I have trouble not talking about it, because what I learned over there was not just what I did over there. And we've gifted and we've done things. Just we do that. I feel really excited about this, because we're actually finding a way to connect, not just to give, but to give out of our ability back to a people and to a group and to the community and to each other, so that we can actually change the world. And keep going. that's what I believe. Go back. That's what I believe. I believe that I was given a word that nations would come to us, and for some reason, and I went through all those long-winded stories to tell you that you don't even know the effect that things have. People end up and where they end up without decision sometimes. All of you 2 weeks ago had no clue you'd be sitting in here tonight. And for some reason, you're in here tonight. And I think God moves in cool ways sometimes, and he puts us in places where we have the ability to affect other people. And I think personally, I'm stoked about it, that we're going to actually change a nation, and something's going to come out of this because I didn't do anything. All this was put in order, not by my decisions. It was put in order by things that were put in my life. And I said something, I've been saying this for a long time ago, say, follow the breadcrumbs, you know. They lay down breadcrumbs to follow to get your way home from someplace. And I said, I think the difference between sometimes the things that I see, the vision I have, is when I see the breadcrumbs, I don't pick them up and pop them in my mouth and go, hey, that was a great snack. And then all of a sudden you see another one and you go, ah, another snack. I see them and realize that if there's one there and I see another one, I'm gonna look for the next one. And if you just take the time to do that, it could be really awesome. This week, how you can get involved, I'm going to tell you real quick in about one minute. But I saw something this week. I saw a video on Facebook. At the end of the video, it was about a kid that was homeless in New York, and nobody helped him for 2 hours. And finally, a homeless guy, and it was like 10 degrees. Finally, a homeless guy came and gave this homeless 15-year-old a coat. And he was a setup. His brothers were videotaping it, but nobody helped him for 2 hours. He was laying in a plastic bag in New York City on the street. And at the end of it, it had this, and I thought it was so awesome. It said, if you wait to do everything for everyone, instead of doing something for someone, you'll do nothing for no one. And I thought it was really cool. And so don't wait to do everything for everyone, because one person can make a difference. You can get involved. If you do me a favor before you leave, I know it's late. Just on your tables, there's a registration form. I'm not gonna send you anything or do anything, but if you just write down your email address, I can at least connect you with a favor. And if you have any interest, you can see it. Send me an email and you can check it out. Amazing stuff, honestly. And the cool thing about this group was, we were there. I know where everything goes. Unfortunately, we had a video that they sent us yesterday because they were having some staff meetings today, and today in the United States was a National Day of Prayer, and they sent us a video with some of the people that we met over there, and it was kind of cool. They were, you know, it was really cool. You didn't get to meet someone on video, but then we couldn't get the sound to work. So, but it's really cool because anything that's invested in this, I mean, literally $25 can be for a kid to go to school. $150 a month can literally support an entire child. $85 a month to double a radio person's salary. $100, $115 a month to double a school teacher's salary. And get them to the point where they have instead of $115 a month, you don't afford anything. I mean, it's life changing. Think about what $50 we use. I mean, I blow more than that on a given night when we come home and we're like, I'm gonna go dinner. Okay, let's just go eat and go to Michael's. And that's all over. You can support like a whole school here at Michael's. So, but for me, it was important enough. Honestly, I wanted to do something nice. I wanted to give you an incentive to come out because this is important stuff. It's life-changing. It's life-changing for other people. And so if you have an interest in favor, or you care to talk to these guys that are here, if you want to make a note on here, hey, give me a call or have an interest that's there. There's some ways to give. I'm going to pass these around. There's a number of things you can do. There's, sponsor a child, whatever. And if some of you just have an interest over time, we're going to be putting together, Dave and I have been talking about this for a long time, and we've not really done anything with it because we didn't have anything like concrete. We have concrete now. We're going to be starting to sponsor some of these projects. If you just think it's a cool idea to get involved in something that's going to be sustainable, profitable growth for people that don't have, and you'd like to just take a monthly or a one-time donation into a profit fund, we're going to put that together and start growing that so that we can try to support some of these some of these organizations. For those of you who are in the room, if over the next, just personally for me as a company, we've made a commitment that for anybody who gives and decides to do something over the next month until the end of May, up to $5,000, we're going to match the funds. So it's a little challenge to you guys. We're going to match funds as a company up to $5,000 a month for the rest of the year for anything you guys to give. We can't, honestly, I said to Kathy, you can't do this unless you make the effort and step out and do it. And this was a massive, massive impact on me. Not just what we saw, but how we got there. It's crazy to watch the world turn around you and change your life. And if you want some of this, talk to David, and just from a personal standpoint, from a gifting, whatever, we'd love to have you be part of this. So thank you for giving me your time and just bearing with us, and I appreciate you guys all coming. Thank you.
There's still wine to be drunk, lots of it, food.
So please finish the food and have another glass of wine.